Before we go into 2019 targets for the agency, just briefly help us understand the kind of investments that came into the country last year and if you did meet your 2018 targets.
Okay, yes, we had some interesting investments coming last year on the back of manufacturing, targeting the government's one district, one factory policy, which is one manufacturing enterprise in each of the 254 districts in the country. We did target $10 billion last year, but we were short of that by stretch because the strategy was targeting specific investor opportunities in mining, in railway, in bauxite, and some of these, oil and gas, of course, some of these transactions have a very long gestation period. So despite the fact that we've engaged investors, we haven't recorded that they've invested till they actually sign on the dotted line. So we didn't achieve the $10 billion. And this year we are targeting $10 billion again. And I dare say that the Ghana Beyond Aid pronouncement by the president has also gingered up a little bit more domestic investment in some of the projects and processes that we have now. For example, planting for food and jobs. It was so successful last year that Ghana did not import a single grain of maize, whereas before we had been. Indeed, we became a net exporter of maize. We had a glut in tomatoes and yams, the staple foods that are here. The next thing is actually to move to commercial agriculture, to develop into rice farming, sugar, first of all, to be for food security, and then secondly, to also create a platform for supplying resources for industrialization and value added in agriculture. So we still do engage in a very aggressive program targeting those investments that last year we started working on, like integrated aluminium industry. That means that we are going to use our bauxite deposits to develop an integrated aluminum industry.
Okay, Yofi,
we already have.
Okay, if I could just come in here. I mean, obviously you had a lot of engagement with investors, but from a policy perspective and just making the investment environment a friendly one for investors, did you get a sense that they're actually satisfied with the policies, perhaps some of the incentives on the ground, just to make their life a lot easier investing in Ghana?
Yeah, yes, indeed they do, because we had a lot of engagements last year. But those engagements we need to translate into real business opportunities. And in that sense, yes, you do suggest that we need to do a little bit more on reforms, first with the GIPC law itself and then investment climate laws, which for a long time have sometimes stood as a barrier to quite a number of investors, either because they do not understand the intentions or it's just simply a barrier. And as we speak, we are trying to formulate a local content law that makes it mutually beneficial to both the foreign direct investor and the indigenous investor. And we all know that usually for the political economy, that's a very problematic area. But we do believe that we have made some great success in that, and we'll move forward. And because I do understand that almost every country wants to do the best for its citizens. But it's also good to do it in a framework that makes sure that there's mutual benefits from business people from outside and business people inside. So we are working assiduously. We've worked hard with the World Bank to look at our reform program. We are also working very hard on the ease of doing business to make sure that we actually improve our position. We have done some significant reforms already in that we need to translate into real activity for the business sector. Now,
for the key sectors that are on the table that you would like to see more investors coming to, energy, agriculture, manufacturing, hospitality, and tourism, which of the sectors would you say perhaps are a priority for you that perhaps you'll be putting a lot more energy into to get that much needed FDI?
Well, you did say energy, so I presume that that's where we need to put a lot of energy in. But I also dare say that Ghana's energy problem is not as bad as it was before. Infrastructure is still critical. First, because you need to connect the country. And as we embark on the one district, one factory, we need to create easier access to markets, not within Ghana, but also out into the African markets. So the aggressive railway project is on stream and is online. An aggressive program to also develop 10,000 kilometers of new roads in various degrees of quality are also on the cards. But alongside that, there are schools coming up, there are hospitals and clinics coming up, and so infrastructure still stands very key because that is an economic enabler. The more roads you have, the more access you have to places in the country, and the more businesses will find it easier to place themselves in areas where the resources are. So that is critical. And of course, tourism is there because it's low-hanging fruit for us. We do have quite a number of heritage sites, both from historical tourism to ecotourism, and so we need to exploit those pretty well and very well. Now, the third critical area is technology. Because we've developed a quite aggressive and robust fintech platform in Ghana, government is also very keen to make sure that we digitalize the economy. So currently ongoing is the National ID project, where everybody is going to be biometrically identified. Then there's also the digital addressing system, where every 5 by 5 square meter block in Ghana is identified by a digital address and therefore easier to locate. When you do all that, then you are able to find people. It's good for collecting taxes. It's good for government engaging with the citizenry, and it's a more efficient way of managing government resources that the citizenry engage with actively. So those three areas are very key. But energy will always be an important aspect because as we move our economy from one base on the export of raw materials into value added and production, energy needs to be a constant. Yeah.